So I'm going to be painting this Venetian cafe scene, and I'm going to be painting on stretch canvas. It's 24 by 30 inches. I've also laid down a base color, which is burnt sienna, cyan, and white. I always start with a base color. It could be quite bright. I think on this occasion, I've been doing some, some more muted ones, just so maybe I can explore color and have those pounce out from this more neutral shade. I've got my palette of acrylics all set out. I use this brand, which is by Royal Talens, and it's their Amsterdam acrylic range. They do a standard series and they do an expert, which is like the artist quality. But I use a paint quite neat and quite thick. So other than the warm colors, which are artist quality, the rest of them are the standard range. I use quite large flathead brushes. This is a 2.5 inch. I got a 2 inch. Got a 1.5 inch. And this is a 1 inch for very fine detail. I've also got a mixing tray. I'll show you on occasion, so it's in front of me. But I'll kind of dive in, and like I say, if you've got any questions, you can put them in the chat room. I'll talk through processes as I go along. Okay, so I don't particularly feel like I want to do any drawing for this scene, so I'm going to go straight in. Just trying to find. Yeah, I'll go straight in with paint to establish really the canvas, just so there's some color coming through in certain places. Also need some tissue, just because I've damped the brush, just going to get the excess off. Okay, so we'll dive in. So what I want to start off with, probably the musicians in the background, although I'm not going to think of them as musicians, it's just going to be tone and color. So big brush, and I will occasionally lift this up so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to start with some yellow ochre, some burnt sienna, bit of deep violet, bit of dark blue. This is a new addition to my palette. It's kind of like, it's called neutral gray, and it just neutralizes some of the richer colors. So a bit of that, maybe a bit of green as well. And I just want to use just my mixing tray just to mix a color, just to dilute it a little bit. And again, just maybe pick up some more color. The starting off point is quite important because I need to embed quite a few colors or quite a bit of paint in my brush. So really just start off by applying something relatively positive. I'll just watch the lighting as well, just in case there's too much glare. Is that okay?
My internet's gone.
Okay.
So you're the host again.
Right. Marie's got a little problem with her internet connection. Okay, so again, just trying to be quite assertive about laying these colors in. So essentially, this is going to be relatively dark. So we'll go in with some deep violet, some burnt sienna, some phthalo green. And just looking to do these kind of rather large blocks, and I'll also use it in a couple of other places. What I'm trying to avoid is too much of this, too much kind of blended mixing. I'm just trying to apply the color and not play with it too much. And over here. So eventually what I will do is put a patch of red there, a bit of red there, and a bit of red there too, associated with the musicians. And also I just want to drop these colors in a couple of other places. That way I'm working on the picture as a whole. So maybe a bit more yellow ochre this time, maybe even a bit of white, bit of sky blue. What I want to do is try and get some light tints in at the same time as some of these slightly darker tones. And so we'll just put some of it there. Again, a bit more blue. So my mixing tray kind of, I've got two patches, one of a lighter color, one of a darker color. And again, we're just trying to create some interesting kind of bands of color. And so I don't overmix too much, so I get the odd little fleck of other colors coming through. I've been doing so much admin today. I've done no painting, so I need a few minutes to warm up. It's just looking at the computer today. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so there's a lady with a green top there. I really like that shade of green coming through. So just picking up on some phthalo green. So the image is a slight angle to me, so occasionally I'll step back, but just want to, like I say, establish some rather assertive blocks of color. Like so. And there's some green just trickling in the background. And I'll show you close up of the photo in a second as well. Although this bears no relation to it currently. And maybe over there. Okay, just going to plumb it for a clean brush. Relatively clean. And again, yeah, we're just going to go back in to the darks. So again, just pick up a couple of colors, maybe drip a bit of, I've got a pyro red and a magenta. And where I've got some of these darks, I might just want to put in just maybe something a little bit different. Over there. And just over here. Okay, so it's dark in this area. Just drop that down. Yeah, so I'm a little bit more pleased with the fact that blues come out. I know it's a dark area and I probably will add some more darks there. I just wanted a bit more blue coming through because I know some red, some stronger red's going to be coming. So I'll just drift maybe some of the darker tone over it. Very abstract. Okay, and just, yeah, it's a bit dark on this side. Eventually you will be able to see what's going on. Okay, so the only thing I always think of is if you started painting this scene and you started kind of drawing each figure out, part of the problem would be you wouldn't have anywhere to go in terms of refining it. So I always think if I start from something that isn't particularly refined and it's quite chaotic, it can only get better, hopefully. So I'm just trying to plot, to some extent, their sleeves in at this stage. Yeah. Okay, so this is where obviously the figures in the foreground are going to go, and I just want to relate some of the blue to the figures. I've got Marie.
Someone sent you a message, but it didn't come through on mine. So basically, they haven't seen you do a demo before. Can you talk a little bit about yourself?
Myself. Okay, so there's been a question apparently. So someone hasn't seen me demonstrate before. Just a little bit about what I do. I've always been an artist. I used to be an illustrator. I used to paint very realistically. You wouldn't guess it from looking at this. The only thing is, when you paint realistically, I found it quite laborious, and there was so much competition. And actually, you just didn't really stand out because it's more of a technical skill. So I started painting looser, not as loose as this, but I started painting looser with big brushes. And I found, to my surprisement, that this was more commercial to some extent and more enjoyable than what I used to do. So, and that was kind of 10 years ago now, just over 10 years. And yeah, so this is my style as it's evolved. Okay, so there's these blocks of pretty much the same kind of tint. It's got a bit of light turquoise, light blue, some blues in there. And also my brush has got a few colors on it, obviously.
Can I ask, someone's asked a question.
Okay.
Are you painting on a smooth board? It doesn't look like there's any texture on it.
Yeah, I'm actually working on, so someone asked, what am I working on? Is it a smooth board? It's a standard grade acrylic stretch canvas. There's no texture on it. It's not a smooth one. It's, I guess it's neither smooth, it's in the middle. Normally I work on other demos, but the treat tonight is I'm working on a brand new one, cotton canvas.
How do you stop the colours becoming muddy?
Okay. One of the questions was, how do I stop the colors from going muddy? Yeah, that's probably down to the fact that I've painted like this for a number of years, and at some point you kind of balance the color a little bit more. The only thing I would say just generally about color mixing, it's interesting looking at colors and seeing how they relate to each other. And it's actually more interesting if you take a few more risks with color. So generally speaking, in books on color mixing, they'll tell you don't mix more than 3 colors together. But I tend to mix quite a few. And the other thing I do is I don't overmix them. So I might do a bit of that, but I won't grind it into a pulp. So what that does is occasionally I get the odd streak of something richer against something that has been mixed a little bit. And at this stage, I'm looking for interesting combinations. I'm not looking for flat grays or flat blues or flat greens. I'm actually looking for something that has a little bit more variety, partly because it's interesting for me. And obviously when I do paintings commercially, I think people like, I guess that selling point, which is very much the way I paint. Okay, so it can afford to be slightly flatter there actually, so slightly less interesting. But this is where the action's gonna lie. Okay, and just some, so obviously I'm going to do something with these figures to pull them out. Like I say, there's probably a point where I might kind of stop enjoying it because it will become more technical. So the moment I start to illustrate the legs of the chairs, I'll lose sight of just laying down marks, because just making it look realistic at this stage isn't the priority, as you can tell. Okay, so there's a strong light there. So again, just pick up that. And just drag that across there. Okay, so we definitely want to drop some red. While I've got these interesting grays over there, I'm just going to pull out, so some of these figures in the foreground, like this guy has got a kind of checkered light gray shirt type thing. So maybe just a tiny bit of orange in it. Bit of yellow. Yeah, so some of these colors might not come through on screen, but like I said, at some point I'll bring this closer to you. Okay, so we'll obviously put heads in and chairs, the backs of chairs. I'm just scouting around, just seeing where the figures lie. So that dark blob there is a bag there, but this is taking up too much space. So we'll just drag some color over that and just around here. So we've got a figure, a lady, this lady, she's going to be there. Just keep an eye on the time as well. I think we'll look for this kind of browny color for the chairs. So my dirty brush and some burnt sienna, some orange, bit of purple, and just mix that in. And we'll just make a mark. Yeah, a little bit darker than that. Bit of green. Yeah, there's another back of a chair here. Just quickly move along. And over here, we've got the back of the chair. And in fact, from this color, I'll probably use a variation of it for the flesh tints. And so that's going to be slightly darker. So maybe just get a bit of dark blue. And just blob that in, a bit darker than that. Yeah, so these are relatively valuable to me in terms of if that shade just happens to fit an area here, then I'll put that in there. And even for some of the base, it might go a bit darker. So obviously I'm taking a gamble on the drawing and hoping that it will fit together at some point. But I kind of think when you paint, there's got to be a little bit of risk taking. Okay, so yeah, dark there, a bit light on this side. So yeah, there's actually, I've got a bit more room over here, so there might be, I'll just fill that in with a little something. Okay, and yeah, I think we will use some of this tone, maybe a bit more in the way of blue. Okay, and again, just while I've got certain colors, just meld them together. So if I don't clean my brush, the colors are going to relate to each other a lot more and kind of look like it's part of the same thing. Okay, just so we've got a head there. There's a lady just sat there with this lovely red hat on. This lady, her head is roughly going to be there. Just moving along. Right, there's another guy at the back there. And yeah, and we've got a guy just here looking at us. Okay, so in fact, just before I get to the flesh tint, yeah, we need to darken that. In fact, actually, you know what? I'll go back to this because I just want to darken this off a little bit more. There's a bit of a mirror here. It's reflecting a bit, so we'll do that there. There's a bit of dark around there. So just picking up some color. So in the photo, that orange isn't particularly strong, but I'm just accentuating it just for now. And just kind of moving along here. There's actually a lady in the shadows just at the back here. And I've just put her in, or just put a shape in, just so I can gauge what the drawing is doing. It just needs to come in. So back to maybe a little bit of dark. Yeah, so this has got quite a bit of light tint in it. So my darks aren't going to go really dark. Just seeing if I can use this elsewhere. Okay, we'll drop some strong red in. So 2.5 inch brush. So pyro red with some magenta. Just want to soften it with some ultramarine violet. And we'll roughly put it there, I think. And that color is similar to what they're wearing, although what they're wearing is slightly knocked back. Okay, so again, just trying to locate positions of things. Moving along, so just lady's head there. So this guy, just again, that might be a bit too rich. So just another go over it.
Okay, got a question. What maker brushes are you using? They look quite soft and flexible.
Okay, the brushes I'm using, we had a question. What brushes am I using? These are by De La Rowney. They are System 3 Skyflow brushes. They come in different sizes, but they're not, you don't get really small ones, especially the Skyflow range. So they can go up to 3 inches big, but yeah, 2.5 inches what fits in my palette. So, and they are floppy. When you first get them, they're not very stiff at all. But as you build more and more paint into it, it really firms up. So eventually I'll use this to kind of equate some of the finer edges in the painting, when I can just use a very tip. But to start with, yeah, I'm using the width for, yeah, just for speed, really. It also, if you want to develop confidence, which I think is quite a big thing with painting, if you work with something like this over a certain period of time, you start to feel confident about painting because you feel like you know, this doesn't become unwieldy anymore. It actually feels quite natural to hold now, and I can create dexterity by twisting and turning it. And I've just noticed the way I paint now, I enjoy it because you know, it feels like more of an adventure when I paint rather than getting a little brush and pecking away at it. So yeah, just for the nature of painting, I find using this a little bit more exciting. Okay, so I've just doused down that color with a bit of the back of the chair color in order to create something of a tint for the faces. So that looks about right. Maybe a bit more in the way of red, something like that. We'll just go a little bit more there. So it's got to go darker than a lighter tint, because I'm going to add highlights into the flesh tints. And it doesn't matter if the head's big. When I make a mark, I'd rather it go bigger than smaller. We will lighten this color off a little bit though.
Okay, I've got a question. Do you consciously create warmer and cooler areas?
Do I consciously create warm and cool areas? Yes, I do. Again, it's something, you know, I guess if you've been taught a particular way, that's going to be what you know. So when I was at college, what little I did learn about painting was more formal, I think, where you look at tone. So you look at dark and light and midtones to create, you know, three-dimensional kind of things, qualities. So when I left college and I was doing my own thing, I started looking at Impressionism, Fauvism, and I just discovered that I was more, you know, color was something I didn't really know that much about. So I'm more conscious of it now. So I make a bigger deal of it. So my paintings are slightly heightened in terms of the colors I'm using. So yes, I will look at that dark area as a cool, and I will look at highlights, stronger highlights later as a kind of light yellowy color. This shape is too big, so that way too big. So that will need to be just manipulated down, just blocking these things in. Again, even something like that, years ago, I would have just started again. So I've just learned with painting, don't be too hard on yourself at these early stages, because you're just trying to create a very, very general impression, and then you can start going in and kind of pulling out, you know, little ears. Okay, so just slightly worried about this color. I like a bit more orange. And just trying to find this lady's profile. Obviously not realistically, but just something. And I've noticed there's a nice strong yellow shirt there. I'm going to put it in now just to get that color. So I've got lemon yellow and a medium yellow, maybe just add a bit of turquoise in it. So I can also reduce the scale of this guy's head quite a bit. Yeah, so yeah, that's going to really go a lot smaller. Okay, so back to this. Yeah, so really it's just kind of a highlight there, and his shirt kind of comes higher up, and that arm is smaller. Okay, so just move along. In fact, this color for this guy's head, a bit too light, just skim over that. Got a hand there. So this guy is fairly close to this girl, but just, okay, I'm trying to avoid outlines like that.
Got a question.
Okay, another question.
Do you use a regular base combination for flesh shades? If so, what do you use, or does it flow from the colours around?
Do I use a regular flesh-based color, or is it, I guess, dictated to by what's around it? I probably have a combination of colors, but it's going to change with whatever I'm painting. It's funny because I think both me and Marie do this for a living, and just sticking to standard stuff isn't really helpful much anymore, because people are trying to find, you know, the next thing, or something fresh looking. So for example, if you liked the Zorn palette for doing flesh, and you always use the Zorn palette, don't ask me what it is, but apparently a lot of people swear by it. But the only thing about that is it's going to stifle that progressive idea that you're going to find a way of doing flesh. And sometimes when you limit your palette, for example, and you haven't got your traditional colors to help you out, you're more likely to find something really interesting. Okay, so these heads and whatnot are going in. Yeah, so that needs to be dark. So I'll probably put that in now, just to start sealing some more of these bits up. So just a clean brush. There's a bit of brown in there. We'll go for the darks first. So maybe some blue. So straight up. Over there. And yeah, so that needed to come in. Or his face needs to be maybe slightly bigger. We'll leave it at that for now. And just in here, so not a lot happening there, a bit of grey. It's going to be a bit darker up there. There's the shape of the piano just comes out. Over here. Just going to show you a close-up. Yeah, looks nothing like it, but bear with me. Okay, so yeah, so there's a guy, the piano swoops down there. That guy's there, bit of shading behind him. And going to, so yeah, the lady's hat. That red should come up a little bit more. I'll do that later. Just strengthen that shape up there, just move along. Yeah, so there's a kind of, there's a little brown line separating the band from the people. I'll do that in a second, just working my way around. Over there. And this guy, just dark hair. Just really quick, there's actually another lady here. Guy here wearing a blue cap. Again, things like that, I can maybe enhance the color a little bit more in the second half. To start with, just bash it in, get the bulk of the the stuff in. Okay, there. Just working our way around. Just got to work on her chin a little bit, just down here. So I had issues with this guy. It's probably the first guy I kind of tried to tackle. It's not quite right. Do that there. This lady's leg is over here. So this shadow actually needs to go slightly lower, which I'll do so. Yeah, it's not too far off, but it's certainly lower. And her bag is just on there. Obviously, I'm going to put the legs of the chairs in eventually, but not quite there yet on that basis. Just okay, so that grey needs to come up slightly darker in there. And again, just a few plots of blue, and in the back there's actually a bit of a red bag. Not bright red, just a bit of colour. And just moving along here. This guy's leg kind of disappears a little bit within the chair legs. Okay, this lady over here comes out, can't quite see what's going on there. So just a little bit of dark maybe. Okay, just get the brown in. So coming to the end of like the stage of just filling everything in. After that, it's really a matter of pulling out the more formal side of the painting. Just moving along here. Yeah, there's a bit of green in here actually. And that's going to be a bit darker. So palette gets a bit messy, which is fine. And yeah, just working out. Should be some color in there. Just looking to fill some of this up. So a couple of things I'm going to do is I'm going to use a very strong dark and something of a strong light. Probably use a strong dark first, actually. Maybe a bit of both, just to illustrate the point of pulling and pushing. Let's get some strong light in. So white, lemon yellow, bit of light blue. It's a bit murky as well, which is fine. Just hold the brush slightly further back. Because what we want to do is start to establish some really strong light contrasts. Got to be careful that, because it's going to pop forward. So I might just want to ease the color down a little bit more. Yeah, so some of this is still a bit workable. Okay, so we've got things like arms of chairs, which I might start putting the odd line in. And just maybe shaping a little bit of the information around some of the figures as well. I'm always a little bit tentative about, I mean, I've gone in quite strong there to really illustrate the point. Because I'm doing a demonstration as well, I'm trying to do this fairly quickly. So back of this guy. So maybe back in with some light blue and some gray into my light color, just to kill the light off. A little bit. So I can do things like just, he's got a bit of gray like me. So just a little bit of light. I've had so much gray over last year. Okay, and we'll just work our way down. So as soon as you start doing some of these inroads into strong light, you'll start to conceive of this scene a little bit more, because the forms will start to pop against each other. Okay, so highlight. Yeah, I'm still concerned about the highlights. I kind of want them to come out, but just sparingly. It's quite light. Just work our way. So yeah, need to work on this lady a bit. Can almost start to. So when I put the legs of the chairs in, what I want to do is not be too self-conscious about it. So like a slightly thicker one and a thinner one. And with some, don't do them at all. One at the back. So this lady, she's quite an important figure, so a bit of that. What's useful about these lines is they create a bit of a pattern, because that's going to be fairly kind of flat. And then this pan in the foreground is just going to draw your attention a little bit. Hopefully the musicians will still come out as the main thing.
So someone said, after your comment about a lot of grey hair this year, has your art changed in the last 12 months?
Has my
with COVID, etc.
Yes, someone said, has my art changed? It's just really okay. So for the last 5 years, I've written altogether. I've written five books, but for the last 5 years, I've written 4 books, and also I write for, like I say, artists and illustrators. So this last year was the first time I said to myself, you know what, let's just paint, but not so much finished paintings, but let's just explore kind of some things, not from an overly commercial point of view, but just to do some painting, because I remember when I had no money, that's what I used to do, and it was quite important, just that exploratory investigation into kind of making marks and what drives you and colors and stuff like that. So that was really useful. I did give myself up until this year really to then knuckle down again. So there's a few things going on this year. Both me and Marie are currently showcasing some new work with, I think I got 2, Marie's got 1, because the David Sheppell Wildlife Foundation is doing a pangolin month to really highlight how endangered they are now, near extinction. So we've done some paintings for that. So if you go to, in fact, if you go to,
I'll write in the link.
Yeah, Marie will mention it in the link, but yeah, we've done some paintings. I've done 2. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see the painting of them, because I've been filming a lot of stuff. Okay, so just brought that out. We'll just do another couple of minutes, and then we'll stop for me to catch my breath. Okay, so this is this guy's arm. Just coming up there a little bit. Obviously, there's other bits of detail. That's his collar, so his head needs to be a little bit higher. This guy here. Again, I'm using this guy's head to find where the arm is. So I was trying to draw something earlier. Okay, and it's fairly light here. And I rested last year. I think a lot of people rested just to deal with it. It's obviously history in the making. So you need to really take on board stuff. Okay. So yeah, so there's going to be more legs coming in. I'll do a few and then I'll get bored, which is why obviously I've stopped doing them. And then I'll kind of go back and maybe do a couple more. What you don't want to do is get a ruler out and start kind of doing them accurately. You almost want to start one and then leave a gap and then do the other bit, maybe a little bit of a line, just so it doesn't look too neat and tidy and contrived. Okay, so yeah, there's a guy here playing away. This is a photo I've taken of Venice when you were allowed to travel, when you weren't going to be slapped with loads of taxes for traveling there. Political, that's me. Okay, so I'm not political at all, by the way. Okay, so some lights here and there. Okay, so just moving along. Yeah, so this guy, there's actually a lady here. And so we'll, like I say, have a little break in a minute. And when I give you the all clear, you can then unmute yourself and have a chat. I'll need to clean some brushes.
Okay, is it Cafe Florian or Piazza San Marco?
Oh God, it's an expensive one. Yeah, someone said which cafe is it? They're all expensive. I think this is the one with loads of chairs outside. I think it's the second one Marie mentioned.
Piazza San Marco.
I think it might be. I think it might be. I'm not too sure though.
It's on the big square, isn't it?
Yeah. Just to let you know, if the recording is okay of this, it will go on my YouTube channel, and I can look that up and let you know. But obviously, we didn't drink. We got our own bottles of water and just sat imagining what it'd be like. To be able to sit with the rich and famous. Okay, so just some light here and there. So hopefully from those humble abstract beginnings, you can see something forming. Obviously, there needs to be a little bit more in the way of refinement and bringing together. But as long as everything's in, you can then spend a little bit more time kind of relaxing into the detail and kind of making those inroads. Too much yellow there. Yeah, there's some stuff happening here which I'll need to address. So I've got Prussian blue, some deep violet, maybe some burnt sienna, bit of cyan. Okay, so just pull this guy's head out a bit more. So this lady's hat is, yes, just slightly higher. So I'm going to try and find it with the dark and then brighten up the red after. And again, just try and do these processes relatively quickly. And this profile comes out. So to some extent, rather than draw the thing, you're doing the negative shape in terms of pulling some of these shapes forward. And I can also just define these figures a little bit more. Okay, so yeah, so this guy's flute, very important. And just Yeah, so I've cleaned up my palette a bit. And yeah, so just in and around some of these areas, I'm just gonna just work on the drawing. I'm still trying to do it in such a way that I'm not just tinkering with it too much. I'm trying to make proper inroads into creating coherent shapes. And in there, yeah, so she's got a bit of a ponytail, and that green shirt needs to come up a lot more. And a bit of dark there. And this guy's trousers dark on this side. And just in here. Just kind of scoping around. And yeah, so this guy's cap, it's darker at the tip of the cap and dark around here. And again, just pulling some of these forms out. Bit. Yeah, so there's a bit of a strong light being reflected. Do something about that later or soon. Dark there. This is little bow tie there. And again, just moving along. So yeah, I need to put his hand back in. And this guy is really brought out by the darker the background around him. Bit of a lady's head there. Just in here, there's a bit of dark. And just here, just kind of moving along on this side, down here. And just in here, some darks. Again, just moving along. So obviously the more you look for, the more you'll find. So there's a few bits and pieces that I could do with just highlighting a little bit more. So lady's bag here, I can just do something here. Okay, this lady here again, the background is kind of determining her neck a little bit more. And a bit of the profile.
Question.
Okay, we've got a question.
Do you use mediums in your paint?
Do I use mediums in my paint? No, I have done. I've got this thing, which contains fluid retarder. So I don't use it a lot, but sometimes I might spray it if I intend to drag something into each other. But it's really just to keep the thing moist if I do need to lift something off or what have you. But I think my style is really about painting and the urgency of it rather than I find anything, any other bits of kit that you got lying around, like little rigger brushes, stuff like that, if there's too much of that stuff, and even with mediums, if I have to just kind of get that going, I just find it stifles the speed at which I'm painting. So yeah, I used to use Flow Improver quite a bit. So flow improver is it's generally liquid form, and it used instead of water, and it retains the strength of the color. So when you use water with acrylics, obviously think of it like watercolor, it's just going to dilute the strength of color. But if you use flow improver or medium, it's going to retain the strength of color. The only thing about stuff like that is, so let's say I use flow improver just to dilute the color, and then I start doing that a lot, blending. It's still going to kill the color because I'm constantly, the barrage of brushing is going to kill the color. So it's one of the reasons why, to some extent, I've kind of figured the best way I work with acrylic is to apply it and then move on quite quickly. Don't spend too long playing with it. I do use these things sometimes. So for example, I'll use them in a minute to put the legs in. But like I say, I really like the way I can use a brush and create dexterity with the brush. With a palette knife, it's a little bit more stark, whereas this I can twist and turn it a bit more. You can do that with a palette knife, I suppose, but yeah, I just prefer brush. That's the easy answer. Okay, so just brought her head out a little bit more. I'm going to add some really strong, actually I just want to bring that green out. It's because I don't get out much, that's why I just rub it on when I do demos. I think someone complained about it in one of the demos I posted. They said, stop talking, let the painting do the work. But it's a nervous reaction to people staring at me. Okay, so just a light and then a medium. And then I can twist the brush to create a couple of creases. Just here and there. Some going to be a little bit more refined than others. There and that in there. And while I've got this, I'm going to see if I can use it anywhere else. There's not a lot of other green, apart from in the little shrubs. That's not a good shape, so I'm going to do something there. So I like to block, so I'll continue blocking things. And just in here. Trying to be very sparing about the marks I'm making. Okay, so we need some stronger highlights. Just need to work on the flesh. So 1/2 inch, basically it's flesh tint with more white. So orange, yellow ochre. Just going to put a bit of light blue in it as well. Yeah. Bit of green in, bit of yellow. Okay, so just going to look. It's probably a bit too light. We'll go in anyway. Okay, so yeah, I didn't want that orange to shoot out from there, so just cover that.
Okay, so someone said, what do you enjoy the most? Groups, portraits, landscape scenes? Oh, and we like to listen to artists talk.
Thank you. I've got a lot to say. No, I haven't. I kind of like a bit of everything. It's really tricky, because the one thing you're meant to do, I guess in anything as a commercial venture, is consistency. So I started off being very consistent with doing street scenes. But over the course of time, I got fed up with street scenes, so I started doing trees. And then I really got into doing trees, and then that became a commercial concern. And then I got fed up with doing trees. And you start revolving around it gets to the point where you kind of then want to do maybe more conceptual stuff. Not that I've started doing that. I used to be an illustrator. I used to do a lot of conceptual illustration for like the Times newspaper. So I'm surprised that that wasn't more of a natural fit for me to do something wacky. Yeah, I think I was looking to present my technique more than my ideas, I suppose. Although I think obviously you can get ideas and techniques. But yeah, so thanks for the comment about you like hearing artists.
How do you keep your paint so moist?
Oh yeah, I was about to ask. I was just about to.
Right, I'm sure you all heard that. How do I keep? When you use thick amounts, it doesn't dry as quick. It might start to dry around the side. So I've been using this for like quite a few weeks now, and I just top it up. And I use a cake stand. I cover it over when I'm not painting. My brush has got a certain amount of water in it. It's not dripping with water, but there's certainly some, there's a water content, which obviously keeps the paint going. But there's a lot of stuff, I suppose it's experience. A lot of my contemporaries paint in oils. Like when I was at college, people just reverted to oil painting. So I just tried to perfect kind of acrylic painting. So I've got used to drying times and how much water you put in, how much you don't. It's all in my book. Please buy it. Yeah, so you just get used to it after a while. And this is where I think college comes in, where you kind of think, well, it's all practical stuff that you can learn about, but you're not taught stuff like that. So you have to find out for yourself, or you watch kind of demonstrators or kind of videos and stuff like that. Okay, so obviously I'm pulling these kind of people out, just working my way through, just looking at time as well. I will turn this around maybe at the end so you can see a proper kind of view of it, but I'll just proceed a bit longer. Okay, so yeah, so the flesh tint I started with, that then becomes a bit of a darker shade, and I'm just adding lighter colors now. So this lady's neck is very light. Okay, so a couple of figures in the back. So that guy, sometimes it's worth just putting a forehead in and a little nose, and that's his hand. He's kind of resting his hand. So I can use that same concept for these figures at the back. So just like the forehead. Awkward brush, obviously. So just using, so forehead, little nose, like that. And then, okay, so he's got his thing out, his instrument, his cello. That's what you call it, I think. I should stop now. Yeah, so forehead, nose, maybe an ear, and his hand, and maybe, yeah, he's got a hand over there. And this guy, same. This will be edited out, all the innuendo. So forehead, again, a little nose, because it's a profile. And then we put some light bits on his hand, like that and like that. Okay, and same here. So in the past, I would have tried to get my little rigger brush out and draw eyelashes. Okay, this guy's a bit different. He's got facial hair. So yeah, is he going to have facial hair? That's a question. Possibly. It doesn't matter. But if I want, so I just pick up some blue, I suppose. Just, yeah, that looks a bit tacky, but I'll leave it like that. Okay, so a couple of other figures. And then I want to put the legs back in, or I haven't put them in yet. More legs for the chairs, and I will show you that little implement I use. Okay, so his shorts are grey blue, and there's a bit of shade in there. So because he's in the forefront, we're gonna put in just a couple of little marks to show some creases, maybe. Just trying to find a bit of a grey, a bit dark in there. And in here, so got to lighten up the chairs as well. Okay, so more of the chairs, legs of the chairs, and we're speeding to the finale. To show you, if I can just lift that up a little bit, you can see, yeah, just a new mixing tray. So I'm mixing up something like I started with. I'll get these out of the way so I can show you how that tool works. So initially I'm mixing up a lot of light with some blues, light blues, bit of burnt sienna. Just putting a bit of flesh tint in it as well. Because essentially I'm looking for, I don't know if you can see that. And once I've got that color, just going to use, so this is for vinyl windows. When you put them on, you use this to get the air pockets out. You can use a credit card, I suppose. And once you find, I mean, I'm sure you've done this before, just find a leg to put in and just drag it across like so. Again, I don't mind it being a bit meaty in some places.
Okay, good question. When you said there's a certain amount of water in your brush, is that from right at the beginning, or do you add water as you go along?
Okay, someone said, is it water that I'm adding or that I started with at the beginning? It's water I started from with the beginning. So I don't add any water while I'm painting because it will run and make the painting, make the colors converge and go messy. So yeah, it's a wet brush from the beginning. So we'll use this a little bit more. So just in some areas. Good thing about it is when you put the color on, that's a lot stronger than what I've got there. So it's a very assertive, a bit like the palette knife. You do get the strength of the color straight away. You can't always predict where it's going. It doesn't matter. And I've got some smaller versions of it for me to do little flecks of light. I was using this quite a bit for some of my paintings. And just some orange in there. And unfortunately, I later found out that, like everyone's doing at the moment, lots of kind of artists who are doing mark making were using bits of card. And the moment someone starts, you know, a more high profile artist, I suppose, starts doing that, I'm talking about someone else, not me, then everyone starts doing it, and it becomes, it's kind of like watercolor. When you see someone do a particular kind of mark making technique, it's kind of then applied everywhere. Okay, so I'm losing myself in all these little shapes. Okay, another question.
I'm playing with shadows in my art at the moment. Have you got any tips?
For shadows,
Any tips for shadows?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is the thing that did it for me is don't look at shadows as dark and light. Look at shadows as warm and cool. The reason for that is the moment you start associating, the moment you start associating emotion as your primary kind of de facto leader, if you like, in your paintings, that's a point where people will connect on a slightly different level. So, for example, if I did a Renaissance thing, which is a very, very strong dark, the chiaroscuro, dark going into light, don't get me wrong, that's the drama, that is amazing. But when you start using blue and when you start using yellow, you're starting to imply I mean, I think that's quite an abstract idea. As the moment I start putting, for example, lemon yellow in my highlights to really communicate the heat of a scene, then you're going to feel the heat depending on whether I use yellow or blue. So you don't tend to get that from like a brown. So yeah, start looking at things as color. So shadows, the deepest, darker shadows will be a strong, darker blue. And where there's strong highlights, look at it as a strong yellow, or slightly strong. You don't have to go bonkers. I haven't gone bonkers on this one, but it does help to start relaying things as color rather than tone. It's quite hard to, I found it initially quite hard to get to grips with color, which is why initially the paintings I did were you know, really horrible. They clashed and they were garish. This may well, for some people, be very garish. Okay, so just accentuating some of the highlights around here, probably a bit too, actually that's fine. Maybe around here. So definitely coming to the tail end. I'm just going to pull these shirts out a bit more. And this in here. So later this year, we were doing some one-off workshops, and one of them was going to be in a place, I think near to you, called Oxshott. And we are hoping to do that again later this year. Obviously, if we survive, the human race. So if that happens, that will be on my website if you're interested in coming along to a live thing. We have got a website called Picks for Paintings with some workshop bits and pieces on there. And like I said, my YouTube channel has got some bits. Okay, so just going to lighten up these sleeves, going to lighten up the backs of the chairs a little bit, but we are on the home straight. Just lighten this guy's shoulders. He's actually got some stripes. So we'll put an impression of that in. And yeah, there's some nice creases there as well. I'm so tempted to showcase my ability to do like creases, but yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, there's a bit of a light color there, bit of light blue on the cap, and just want to lighten up. I mean, her hat, at the moment you notice it, I mean, it really stands out. So this is a nice color. It's like an opera rose type color, bit of white. And just wanted, in the photo, it's actually slightly more orangey, but okay, and that is going to be a bit darker. So just some red. Yeah, so a hat kind of comes in like so. This is one of the reasons why you start off with some of these colors, but maybe they're slightly turned down. So when you pop them, at least there's some of that color there, but you can accentuate them a lot more. Just this guy. Strengthen that red a little bit more. And just looking to darken it off a little bit now. Yeah, too dark. Maybe get red back in. And yeah, just in there. And this guy, kind of mentioned this a lot in some demos. Normally people look at the head and shoulders of figures, which is why you might not do feet or don't illustrate them too much. So just almost the tops of the heads. Just moving along there. And yeah, this guy, yeah, just a little bit of a highlight just to really kind of draw his shape out. And just moving along here.
So can you put the white seat in? Lady in ponytail is floating.
Oh yeah, I'm going to do that now. Don't worry. Yeah, she's floating. Yeah, I need to put just to stabilize her. When I used to get comments about, can you put windows in? Can I do that? I'd obviously say to the person who asked me things like that, would you like me to put it in? And they said yes. And then I'd say, well, then I'll leave it because it's going to have more impact for you if I don't put it in. Because one of the things about paintings, I think that I noticed over time is that people like to see paintings kind of, you know, tied in a nice little bow. But it's something I like about this kind of art where you might leave her floating. You don't know if she's floating. It's in my imagination. So yeah, part of it is you are trying to create reactions with people.
Yeah, someone else has said, I kind of like the idea of her clothes obscuring the edge of the seat. So.
It's going to be your, you know, your own personal interpretation. I'm not trying to some extent, please, you know, you want to do paintings that people like, but you're not trying to be overly, yeah, something happened there. Oh yeah, that's a light bit. So lost my train of thought. Okay, nearly finished. Okay, and okay, so very, very near the end. I will turn this around in the next couple of minutes. Thanks for staying up. Our cat has gotten so used to us being at home that I think he's going to be in shock that we haven't been back by now. So we'll finish off very soon. Okay, so her legs, to some extent, yeah, still got a bit of grey. Yeah, probably didn't want to make too much of that.
Okay, so can you let us know when you organised your Oxshot workshop? Yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah. Someone just said about the Oxshot workshop. Yes, we're probably looking for somewhere late September, early October. It's a shame because when last year we had a few of these booked, and I was completely surprised because they all filled up really quickly, that we actually had others booked. And literally, I think the first one we ran, that there was a lockdown. So those, all of them just halted. So we are looking to get back to some normality, yeah, later this year, but who knows? Who knows? I might get a proper job by then. I might just think, you know, this is just too much. Okay, so right, I think this is it really. Okay, so that light needed to go there, but yeah, now she was floating, but that chair is very, I've never seen a chair like that. I've seen a Barcelona chair, but this is probably a very special Venetian chair, because that light, never mind. That's gonna bother me, so I'll bring that in. Yeah, so this is where, so by the end, I'm very obsessive because I know I need to work on stuff. So we'll just bring that dark in. Just wanted a couple of lights just catching this, certainly this guy's arm. And in there, and there, over there. So you got to follow it up. Yeah, and that obviously I could have done something with. Right there.
Someone said, I'm just so impressed that you can make sense of such a complicated scene in such a short space of time. Most people would have spent the same amount of time just sketching in the outlines.
Thank you for that. Someone just said about the quantity of information, just trying to break it down over the time. You should have seen the scene I was going to do, which was vast. There was hundreds of people in it, but I thought I'd give myself a bit of a break tonight and just do this relatively. Don't get me wrong, I'd rather do a scene where it's taxing rather than give you something a little bit safer. So I thought this had everything really. Okay, I think barring the odd little bit of highlight here and there, I think we're pretty much there. Yeah, I say that and then I still do. So a couple of highlights there. Okay, just wanted to show it. So yeah, that kind of gives you slightly kind of close up, looking back. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Yeah, hope it gave you an insight into just blocking in fairly quickly with acrylic painting, and don't mess with it too much.